Alright, we got a vampire movie for you today. This is Blood Red Sky. I believe it's a Netflix original. It's from 2021. There you go. Spoiler alert, let's just get right into this. I'm going to be talking about the movie, giving a synopsis and thoughts and whatever, so if you don't want the movie spoiled, you have been warned. That is out of the way. Let's get into it. So, you start off with an aircraft in the air. It's heading towards an RAF base in Scotland, and they're talking over the radio to the guy in the cockpit, how to land the aircraft properly, essentially. There are explosives on the plane, they're told, and they assume that this guy's the terrorist, because once he lands, he starts saying, like, I can't let these people off the airplane. He doesn't quite explain why at that point. And we find out why he doesn't say that, because who the hell would believe him if he tells them why? Anyway, carry on. Going back in time a little bit, the main story of the movie picks up. So this is before the aircraft took off. You have a woman putting on a wig in her room, and she has medication with her, and she's looking a little sickly. So it's assumed that she's like a leukemia patient. So looks like mid-stage, like not doing too well. Leukemia. I mean, the wig too. I mean, obviously maybe there's chemo or radiation or whatever one, whatever makes you lose your hair. I think it's chemo. But anyway, so we're introduced to her. Her name's Nadia. And then we cut to the airport where her son Elias is checking in. Tells the person at baggage check-in that his mom's going to be coming shortly to meet up with him, whatever, so it's all good. He's having trouble with one of the bags, so the gentleman on the other side of the aisle helps it out. Turns out that this passenger's name is Farid, and he's one of the main characters in the movie. So these are the three main characters. Basically, you got Nadia, Elias, and Farid. They're like the mains. Anyway. Eventually, after dark, she arrives and she meets up with her son, and they go through security, and she gets flagged for her medication, obviously, but she has a prescription, so it's all good, gets put through, and she excuses herself when they go to sit down at their gate and says, okay, I'm gonna go to the bathroom and take my medication. So all of her medication is like intravenous, injected with like a syringe or whatever, so I guess she doesn't want to do that in front of everyone. Anyway, she goes and does that, and Elias sees Farid sitting there, the guy who helps the luggage, so he goes there and shoots the shit with him for a little bit. Tells him essentially, they're going to New York, his mom is sick, there's a doctor there that's going to basically give her a transfusion, essentially. He says remove all the bad blood and put in new blood so it can heal her bone marrow and all that stuff. So yeah, sounds like leukemia, and that's what Farid assumes too. Anyway. They board the plane, and it takes off, and then we get our first of a couple of flashbacks. So this first flashback, we see a scene of before her sickness. So she's with her family, meaning her husband, little baby Elias, and they're playing in the snow and having fun, and then it shows a scene of them driving on a quiet night with a soft snowfall. Very pretty. The three of them. Unfortunately, the car breaks down, so Papa says, all right, I'm gonna go to the nearest town and get some help. And she's like, all right. So she stays with the baby, and he goes off. But he's gone for a while, I guess, because she takes it upon herself to take the baby and go look for him. She ends up finding footprints that go down to this house. And she goes into the house, and there's like a blood trail. Sorry, I'm mixing two of the flashbacks together, but it doesn't matter the order that they happen. Anyway, she's a blood trail, and she follows it and sees her husband dead. Anyway, back on the plane, there's a man causing a bit of a commotion, which activates one of the air marshals, who basically subdues him and brings him into the flight attendant area where I guess they chill. And another agent gets up and is like, hey bro, do you need some help or whatever? Lo and behold, one of the flight attendants, who in this film is referred to as 8-Ball, he's the most unhinged out of all these bad people. He kills the agent that's not restraining the guy, and then they basically restrain that agent and say, listen, I know there's a third one on here. Where are they? They eventually find out where she is, and she's in the front, and they kill her while she's asleep. So that's fun. So all the air marshals are taken down essentially at this point. I think they killed the first one too. Doesn't matter. They all die anyway at some point in the film, so whatever. And he's not a main character, so it really doesn't matter. So anyway, this flight attendant, he demanding access to the cockpit, and the flight attendant's like, I can't let you in. Anyway, the door unlocks. Lo and behold, the co-pilot is also one of the terrorists. So, good times. The main pilot has been taken out. It's on autopilot. They leave, and they start doing their thing, telling all the passengers, put your arms on the chairs, don't move, yada, yada, yada. I'll make a note that all of these terrorists are like European white-looking dudes. So what they do is they grab two Arabic-looking dudes and make them read a pre-written letter in Arabic, basically sounding like a Middle Eastern terrorist group. He's forcing one to read it, and the guy can't really read it because he doesn't speak fluent in Arabic, and the other guy's taking too long, and finally Fareed grabs it and just reads it, but he doesn't read it. He says along the lines of, we're not a terrorist group, we're being forced to read this, blah, 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 blah. At which point the terrorist shoots the professor guy and says, listen, read it properly. We don't want to keep doing this, all right? So he does, unfortunately, read it. At this point, they turn the aircraft... Oh yeah, the aircraft has been turned around, by the way. So it was heading from Europe to New York, and they turned it around, and then they put it on autopilot, whatever. So that's fun. Like a good little boy, Elias doesn't listen. So he had been looking at the pamphlet in the back of the seat, the one that says, what kind of airplane you're on, where the emergency exits are, all that kind of stuff. And on the pamphlet, it shows like where the storage area is. And he's like, Mom, we can like totally go to that hatch and hide in there. And Nadia's like, dude, no, like they have guns. Like we're not going to make it very far even if we try, right? So again, like a good little boy, Elias doesn't listen, and he bolts down the aisle. So she chases after him to try to stop him, and our good friend 8-Ball ends up shooting her in the back and the chest and everything. So he shoots her, turns, shoots her, she's down. Presumed dead. Elias, hysterical, that's his mom, obviously. They grab him, throw him back in the seat. They basically use that as a warning, like, anyone else want to try anything? No? Okay, we're good. Anyway, one of the other terrorists grabs 8-Ball and says, listen, you do that again, I'll kill you myself. We're not here to just kill individual passengers for fun. Like, calm down. He's like, all right. Anyway, we go back to another flashback. Continuing where we left off, the dead husband in the basement. Suddenly, vampire. So, I mean, we know it's a vampire, so that's what it is. It chases her, and she manages to lock like the cellar door, and it can't get in, and you hear it climbing around to the outside of the house, and there's like a cellar window, those little like ground level things. Anyway, it's breaking through that and trying to get in, and she's fighting it off with a 2x4. She ends up getting bitten, which in a lot of vampire lore we know that transfers the curse or whatever, so that's unfortunate. But anyway, she fights it off. As the sun comes up, you hear it scream and run off, and you find out that it dies. She killed it, essentially. And then we cut back to the airplane. So, lo and behold, Nadia the vampire comes to. She ain't dead. She kind of crawls herself. She's still injured, so let's be real. Like, even in like most vampire lore, bullets can at least stun them, or sometimes it can hurt them and stuff. So in this universe, it can hurt them. It won't kill them, but it'll injure them. So she goes into the storage area to recuperate away from all the craziness. She has her medication there and whatnot, and she's about to inject it, and she hears all the stuff, and she's thinking about it. She's like, you know what? No, I'm not going to suppress it all the way. So she refrains from doing that. She's like, I'm going to let a little bit of the vampire take over, and I'm going to defend this aircraft. So, awesome. Good job, vampire. You're going to save the day, right? Anyway. But to get her strength back, she needs blood. In the storage compartment, a bunch of dogs are barking, obviously, because they're in cages in an airplane, and there's a thing that they can smell as a predator, so they're going to be barking. She grabs a little yappy dog and feeds off of it, and that's the end of that. Meanwhile, the terrorists have now come into the cargo bay, not knowing that she's in there or what she is. And they're looking through all the luggage. And yeah, there's like bags and suitcases. There's even a car in there, so that's fun. But yeah, they're looking through it because they had smuggled in individual pieces to make these bombs that they want to make to rig the plane. So their plan is to fly it back to London, essentially, and like bomb London with it. Use it as like a missile, whatever. So that's their plan. Anyway, London's the target. They have this bomb stuff in here. They're doing that. Oh, I forgot to mention, they also tell the passengers not to try to escape or get out of the aircraft or anything, because all of the things are lined with nerve gas that will be triggered, and they have masks, and the passengers do not. So that's fun too. Anyway, the one of the two guys that are in the storage compartment strays a little bit and ends up coming into the hold area where Nadia is. Lo and behold, she takes him down, bites him, drinks, and then she sees all of her all of her wounds healing. English is not my first language, so forgive me. It is, but it's not. So you understand. So she heals, and she sneaks back into the passenger area to hide, essentially. Buddy finds the other dead terrorist and assumes it's a pit bull, so he goes into that area and sees the little yappy dog dead, and then one of the cages is open with a pit bull loose, and so they assume, I guess, the pit bull did it, because bite mark, you're not thinking vampire first thing right off the bat, right? So they take out the pity, unfortunately. Side note, going off a tangent, pit bulls are actually really sweet creatures. I had an ex who had a pet pit bull, and it was like the most lovable, floppy, goofy dog. So I think it's all about how you raise them, personally, of whether they're vicious or not. But I could also be wrong. I'm not a dog expert, right? I'm not the dog whisperer, so maybe some are just assholes like people. We don't know. Some dolphins are assholes too, by the way. Total different tangent. Let's get back to what I'm trying to actually talk about, which is the movie. Sorry, got sidetracked there. So, right, so the pilot's dead, and then one guy in the aircraft is like, he kind of knows how to fly. So Fareed and him, I guess, go to the cockpit, and they enter it. And, whatchamacallit, Elias is with them at that point. Nadia had come and brought this guy to the cockpit. Not Fareed, sorry. Fareed is still a passenger, but it's her son, and this guy who's like an aeronautic engineer student or something, who like sort of knows how to fly a plane. Essentially, it's like the closest thing possible, but it's on autopilot right now, so they're good for a while. But he would be the best bet for with assistance from ground traffic control on landing it when they get to their destination. So they turn the plane back to head back to New York at this point, and the terrorists realize that, and they're not happy. They also realize the woman they shot's still alive. Where is she? Cockpit. All right. So they bring a passenger up, and they count to 3. Say, you turn the plane back around where we turned it, or this person gets it. 1, 2, 3, bang. We got another passenger death, unfortunately. So that is a thing that happened. They're going to keep doing it, essentially. And 8-Ball, in his wisdom, grabs a little girl, and obviously the other guys are not impressed, but they go with it anyway for whatever reason. I guess they figure, you know what, that's actually not a horrible idea. She's not going to let a little girl get killed, right? So, lo and behold, they do that. The door opens, but she bites the guy holding the gun to the girl. He dead. He shot her, but it's no use. But he starts to turn, so she kills him and whatnot. And she tries to calm the girl, but she's like all like partially vamped out and has like blood on her. So the girl's freaking out. She just runs back to her parents. Like, valiant effort, but not gonna happen. So she tells Elias basically, listen, you do not open this door, no matter what. You keep it closed, and I'll do my thing, basically. Which she does. Shuts the door. One of the surviving terrorist group people kind of reconvene and come to the conclusion that she's a vampire. What? Yeah, no, she is. 8-Ball's like, that's all good. We got this. They have these little UV flashlights that they were using to like read like secret messages and stuff that they put on the plane ahead of time or whatever. So he's like, they don't like sunlight, right? Vampires? They don't. So I got a UV flashlight. That's going to do some damage, I assume. And he's right. They don't like UV in this universe either. Anyway, cut to the flashback again of her dealing with her newfound vampirism, trying to take care of the bebe. She goes on a little quest to find, like, I guess to figure it out. She finds the vampire who is the father or the sire of the vampire that turned her. He's like, you killed my son, but it turns out that he is essentially in agreeing with needing to eradicate vampirism entirely, so kind of nihilistic of his own people, which is fine. They're vampires, right? Anyway, we go back and we see 8-Ball with a sharpened hockey stick and his UV light. He ends up subduing Nadia, and using her own medication bag syringe thing, ends up taking some of her blood. So we know where this is probably going, don't we? But Elias saves the day before he can kill her with the sharpened hockey stick stake that he has on her by holding up a handgun. I guess he got it from one of the air marshals that was down or something. So obviously the guy calls his bluff and approaches Elias and knocks his hand, and the gun fires and shoots out a window. So obviously the air pressure, the air compression inside the aircraft is just like out the window now. Oxygen masks come down. They have to lower the plane's altitude now, meaning that they cannot travel as great of a distance using the same amount of fuel. I don't know if you guys know how that works or whatever, but like the atmosphere being thicker on closer to Earth makes it actually take up more gas than, and you flying slower because there's more drag than if you're flying high. So that's why aircrafts fly up high. There's more to it than that, but in a nutshell, I believe that's essentially what it is. I'm not an aeronautic engineer either, so if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, but I believe that's what it is, I think. Anyway, that doesn't matter. So, where do we leave off? Oh, yeah, it breaks the window, so they need to land, essentially. Nadia somewhat recovers from, the shots and the UV light and all that, and her shoulder took a shot too, and a group of passengers decide to take the cockpit, retake the cockpit, I should say. She goes into the cargo area, I guess, to recuperate again, to feed off of the guy that she killed, who's still there. He's still got blood, so she can still use it to like heal herself. And she sees good old 8-Ball inside this car that was stowed there. She's like, yeah, this ain't happening, you're done. So she starts firing at the passenger window. Shit, it's bulletproof glass. I guess maybe there's a diplomat car there, or maybe they planned this, I don't really know, but that's the case. So she jumps onto the hood, starts shooting at the windshield, and it's, doing those little chips. Bulletproof glass, it will eventually give, but like it's gonna take a lot to do it. So she looks around, she finds a big metal rod from something, I don't know what it's from, but she grabs it and she starts smashing the part where she shot at, the weak part, and eventually it goes through. It doesn't shatter the windshield or anything, but unfortunately Buddy inside the car grabs it and pulls it in, so she no longer can grab it. And he, in front of her, takes the syringe, injects it, and starts becoming a vampire, which she is not into at all. She doesn't want this to spread, right? So she goes to the luggage and finds some like high-proof alcohol, dumps it through the hole in the windshield, and zippos it, and it's ablaze. Meanwhile, the terrorists are alerted. Oh shit, there's a fire in the cargo bay. All the auto fire extinguishers go off, and which is unfortunate because it ends up saving this guy, so that's fun. Yeah, where are we now? He injects the blood, and there's one more flashback, and yeah, that's where she talks to the vampire guy, and he's like, we gotta like eradicate her kind, whatever. I think she kills him too, because why not? Anyway, yeah, the fire systems go off. And the plane is back on track to go back to Europe again. So it's like a back and forth. This plane's turned around like 4 times or whatever, but it doesn't matter. Nadia returns to the passenger area, and obviously people see her and they all panic. And the guy who survives the fire is now fully vampiric and ends up killing one of his buddies and feeding on him, and then turns another one of his buddies and makes him feed on the other one to gain strength. So essentially now the vampire curse is like, or disease or virus or whatever you want to call it, is spreading. He is making vampires now. That ain't good. And when you're freshly turned, I guess, if you don't have any morality sense of what the hell's going on to you, you know, maybe she was able to fight it initially because she had a baby and it's kind of there, but all these people are turning and becoming vicious, so that's fun. A couple passengers go on a witch hunt to take her down, and Farid attempts to stop them because she's on their side. Like, all these other vampires are assholes, but she's the good vamp. Anyway, Farid ends up getting bitten, and she basically takes like a fire axe from in the plane, or some kind of axe of some kind. I don't know if planes have axes on them, but she finds one somehow and chops his arm off, basically stopping the spread before it gets any further than where he was bitten. So he's bleeding out. She ties it with like a cord, whatever. At this point, the co-pilot, who was a terrorist, is sort of like playing game because, you know, vampires are a lot scarier than his terrorist buddies, right? So he's kind of on board for the most part. Yeah, he turns. She curbs it. They make contact with the land, and they're like, okay, we're gonna like have you land at this base or whatever, which turns out to be the one in Scotland, the RAF base. Later, an injured passenger ends up like, the vampires right now are like trapped. So we have a bunch of guys sitting on the hatch, like the storage hatch in the flight attendant area, so they can't push up. And then there's another door that's like locked. There's an injured passenger who's being treated, and he's like really injured, but he's an idiot because there's a doctor on board, obviously. As the doctor goes to get medical supplies, he drags himself to the door and opens it, and basically says to one of the vampires, like, turn me, like, please turn me, I don't want to die. The vampire's like, I don't give a fuck. Punches him in the face, and now the vampires are loose, and they're causing havoc, and they're killing passengers. So, well, not exactly killing, they're killing and turning passengers, depending on who's bitten and who dies and all that stuff. So it's going all out. The doctor gets bitten, the remaining flight attendants, I mean, I'm sure like the little girl that was there is probably a vampire or dead now, so that's fun. Then I have some notes here. What happens at the end here? The mom essentially says to Farid, like, listen, you and my son are like the closest thing to like buddies on this airplane. Please make sure you take care of him. And he's like, yeah, for sure. And essentially, 8-Ball comes up and he's like about to kill her essentially, and I think it's Elias who opens the emergency hatch or whatever, and he goes flying out. But he's holding onto the cargo net and crawling back in, and he's grabbing Elias and trying to pull him, and Farid is in the cockpit, and he can see this on the camera, like the security camera, so he takes over manually and steers the plane so that it turns so that the sun is hitting the door where this asshole vampire is trying to pull the kid out. Anyway, smokes him, or dusts him as they say in Buff, and there's light shining in the airplane now, so the group of bad vampires are on one side there essentially, and the mom and some other ones are on the other side, and unfortunately the mom is really starting to turn now. She's had a lot of blood. She still has some in her. She's still making sure that her son is okay, but yeah. So essentially that's what happens. They are trapped because of the sunlight. They can't leave the plane because of that. So when they land the plane at this RAF base, they're pretty much stuck where they are. And that's when the kid escapes because he's right by the door, staying in the sunlight the whole time. So that's how he survives. But then we're back where we were at the beginning of the movie. We're back at the RAF base, and the soldiers take him, whatever, and you know, he's Like, you have to save Fareed, you have to get Fareed. And they're like, dude, he's a terrorist. I don't know what he told you, but like, he's part of it. He started. Elias is like, no, he's not. Trust me. And they're kind of doing back and forth or whatever. And Fareed's trying to explain, like, they end up capturing, they board the plane and they capture Fareed, and he's trying to explain, like, there are like literal monsters on the airplane. You cannot let them out. Anyway, the whole military brigade, they put up a decent fight, but a bunch of vampires. They end up surprising them and catching them and killing them, and probably turning some of them as the sun is going down. So now they're starting to pile outside of that broken cargo door. And you see them on the ground attacking more of the soldiers, and one of them that is killing one of the soldiers happens to be Nadia, and Elias is like, Mom! So, side note, up until this point, they think that Fareed has the detonator for these bombs. Lo and behold, Elias has the detonator. He snuggled it in his teddy bear, who he brought with him, and he escapes, and he's running to the airplane to try to see if Fareed is okay, and Fareed's out of the airplane at least, so he is okay. And as the kid's running, he sees his mom fully gone. She's feral now, so as she hisses and like starts running towards him, he takes the detonator out of the teddy bear, and boom, plane's gone. Kills all of the vampires in it, including Mom. Tear shed. And there's a reunion with Fareed. They uncuff him. They realize he's been telling the truth. Obviously the colonel guy's like, what the fuck is going on here? And that's essentially it. So I guess Fareed is Elias's new guardian or whatever, and credits roll. So that was pretty neat. I actually didn't mind this movie at all. What am I going to rate it? Well, let's talk more about the vampires in this too, because it was kind of neat how they kind of lose their minds slowly, but some of them turn quickly too. Like it's like I said, I think it was the fact that she had a son was what was letting her be able to fight the, just giving in to the bloodlust or whatever. So that's kind of neat how they did that. Whereas these terrorists who obviously don't value human life very much and whatnot, and some of the passengers who didn't have any loved ones or whatever, they turned quickly and whatnot. So that was kind of a neat way to do that. The look of the vampire was kind of cool as well. It reminded me of was it 30 Days a Night? I think it kind of looked like that. So they kind of had like the white pale. They had a little bit of the Buffy forehead, like Buffy vampire forehead thing, but not as wrinkly. It was just kind of like their eyes were like all black and stuff, and they had like fangs, and I don't know. It was a cool design for a vampire. Not like the coolest in the history of time, but it was good. It's a foreign language film that was dubbed over, so I don't really know if the acting was good because the voice dub overs, it was a dub, so I don't know, but it seemed okay. It was a pretty good dubbing as well. Like, it wasn't so obviously dubbed that it took away from the film, so that was good. Not like some of like the old Godzilla movies, which are like infamous for like having a guy have his mouth going like that and he says yes or something like that. But no, they're not that bad, but that was pretty good. So all along, everything was solid. The action was good. Some of the gore was pretty good. It wasn't like overly gory, but there was blood and stuff. You don't see any guys getting like their heart ripped out or anything, so whatever. Anyone queasy could watch this and be fine. Yeah. So should you watch it? I would say, yeah, check it out. It's on Netflix, like I said. If you have it, check it out. What am I going to rate this bad boy? I'm thinking 6s. I'm thinking mid 6s. Maybe 6 point... I know I rated something 6.66 to be snarky. So let's give this one a 6.61. Sure, that's fair. 6.61. That's what we're giving Blood Red Sky. Alrighty. Yeah, we'll see you next time. I haven't decided what movie I'm going to do yet, because last time I did that it was Soul Survivors, and then I put it off for like 3 weeks. So we'll just keep going spur of the moment. But yeah, we'll catch you then. Check out the movie. It's fun.